Hello, Zalto Live listeners. Before we get started, we wanted to let you know that more teachings from Zen monk Claude AnShin Thomas are available in his two books, At Hell's Gate, A Soldier's Journey from War to Peace, and Bringing Meditation to Life, 108 Teachings on the Path of Zen Practice. Both are available wherever books are sold, and all proceeds go to the Zalto Foundation, dedicated to promoting nonviolence, awareness, and positive change.
Hello and welcome to Zalto Live, the podcast featuring Zen Buddhist monk Claude AnShin Thomas, who will share with you his life experiences that includes not only military combat, personal violence, and addiction, but also healing, transformation, and the ongoing joy of everyday life. Please enjoy listening.
Take a question from the group. Yes, Olivia.
Hi.
Hi.
First of all, I just want to say how happy I am to be here. And secondly, I struggle a bit with the change from the breathing through the nose and then through the mouth. For me, it would be easier to let it flow through the nose. So I'm wondering what is...
So your question, Olivia.
So what is the significance of breathing in through the nose and out of the mouth?
The significance is that's how I was taught. And so that's what I pass on to others. And I never got into any internal dialogue or discussions about that. I didn't ask any questions. I just followed instructions. Practice is not about what's easy or comfortable. It's about noticing where are my resistances and addressing those. Question from the group. Oh yes, Zonia. And then Getzigan.
Was there something that you had an internal dialogue or questions about it, or what was it when you began with sitting?
I had no questions and no dialogue. I just followed instructions. And through that process, I got to sort of begin to learn how to bear witness to my conditioning, to the habits that kept me trapped in repetitive cycles of suffering. I didn't fight, I just followed instructions. There were some instances, for example, when in the first monastery where I lived and studied, we did walking meditation sometimes outside. That was far too uncomfortable. So I continued to practice walking meditation with the group, just rather off to the side. And that's really about coming to terms with how I was affected by my war experience. But I followed instructions. Getzigan.
Anshin, do you want to control processes sometimes? And how did you come to the place where you are now regarding control?
I learned very early on in the process, if I have to control something, that means I'm already internally out of control. I also know that control is an illusion. Mm-hmm. And so, no, I didn't really make any, it's not entirely true. I didn't make any effort to control processes. At the first monastery I lived and studied at, they didn't take very good care of their equipment, their machines, the cars in particular. They were really in a dangerous condition. They were being used to transport young people to school and practitioners to and from town for various responsibilities. And they were really in dangerous condition. So I rendered them helpless, the cars, without really breaking them, until there was some agreement or commitment to really get these cars in a position, in a safe working order. But in terms of the instruction, the basic instructions on practice, and I didn't make any effort to control any of that. Question from the group. Yes, Leila.
Hello.
Hello.
What's the difference for you between following instructions in the military and following instructions when you started in the first monastery?
No, there wasn't a lot of difference. The difference was in the nature of the instructions and the way they were delivered. But no, I just followed instructions. And my military training and experience may have had something to do with that. But if I would have been given instructions that really violated certain ethical or moral principles, you can rest assured I would not have followed them. I wouldn't have argued with them, but I wouldn't have followed them. In the second monastery where I lived and studied, we'd have these really intensive training periods where we would practice in very strict silence, not even looking at one another. The only time we had any conversation was with the guiding teacher. But after these intensive training, and we would eat a vegetarian diet, very simple, no intoxicants. And then after one of these training periods, or after these particular training periods, they would then have a party. They'd be dancing, yelling, smoking cigars, and drinking beer and eating burgers. Not me. Yes, I just didn't do it. Question from the group. Yes, Peter, and then Kyoto, and then Sabina.
What's the difference between control and discipline?
Discipline is 10 letters and control is 7. Yes, but there's a significant difference. Discipline is really a self. It's really rooted in my own desire to follow instructions. Control is where I'm rather being forced into doing something that I'm not so comfortable with. Yes, and that if I don't, then there's some sort of punishment for that. I mean, that's the military. I mean, military discipline is really, you do what you're told. And if you don't, then there's severe consequences, not only for you, but for everyone around you. The discipline I experience in training is that I constantly had a choice. But then it's also true, if I wasn't willing to follow instructions, then what was I doing there? So I see a difference between control and discipline, besides the spelling. Let's see, then there was Kyoto.
What do you do if a situation or a person is emotionally challenging you?
Well, it's my emotions that are being challenged. So that's what I need to pay attention to. So it's often not the other person who is challenging me, but that I am challenged. So I need to look at, so what is it about me in this situation that I feel challenged? So it's always about bringing the attention again and again back to me. Things don't happen to me as much as I respond to things or react to things. Yes, there's a question that arose in the chat box. And please, I want to say for those of you who are on screen, we don't use the chat box other than to communicate essential information. So no side conversations in the chat box. And this is a practice of questions and responses. You ask, I respond. There's no dialogue. So this question from Susan Sellers. How long did it take for me to learn to sit and meditate without worrying what was coming from behind me? Well, I sit with my back to the wall, so I don't have to worry about that. And we sit with our eyes mostly closed, not completely. It is also true that in the tradition in which I'm ordained, we traditionally sit facing the wall. Because I'm facing the wall, it doesn't mean that I don't know what's going on behind me. Because I'm aware of the space that I'm occupying. Yes, I'm still at a point. I prefer not to sit in an exposed way. And exposed means I don't have a complete view of the space that I'm in. But in the meditation hall, this is not so much of an issue for me. Question from the group. Bert, and then Myoshin.
Hi, did you hear?
What does time mean for you in your daily life, but also in a Buddhist context? Let's say your lifetime, your time by watch.
I don't think about it too much. Time by watch. I mean, society functions on time. So if I have an appointment, for example, tomorrow morning, I have an appointment for acupuncture. That appointment is at 8:30. If I show up at 8:30, I'm already late. So I'm there at least 8:25. So I pay attention to time as it appears on the watch and as humanity sort of functions on this. I spent a good bit of time in therapy in a therapy group with a social worker that was facilitated by a social worker. And I remember what surfaced in this group, that to be consistently not on time just demonstrates a couple of things. One, that whatever I'm attending is not that important, and two, the amount of stress that induces. I know I spent time in countries where they consider themselves very laissez-faire around this topic, but they're not really laissez-faire. They carry so much stress, these different groups. It's all so much more simple, so much more relaxed. I just don't need that kind of tension in my life today. So, lifetime, I don't really know what that means. I do know that looking out through my eyes, I see and experience the world differently than if I look in the mirror. So, yeah, there's a time limit. This form has a time limit. Impermanence. It's like anything mechanical. If I don't take care of it, these things wear out. They need to be attended to, nurtured. The washing machine, the kitchen sink, the bed, the body. We're not different. I just read an article in one of the newspapers I read. There's a woman in a small town in California, Willits, California. She just celebrated her 116th birthday. She's the second oldest person in the world. And they the whole town threw a big party for her. They have a parade, dresses up. But that's not the rule right yet. I really want to care for this. And still it will, the various parts that need to be in balance for this form to function okay. And, they can wear out. I do the best I can with what I have. Eat well. Eat healthily, eat responsibly, not too much, not too little. And there's guidance around that. It's about following instructions, not the ones I want. Yes, there's debates about what's healthy and what not. I mean, I sort of know. I don't take any intoxicants, no alcohol, no illegal drug, no prescribed medication. I don't take any tobacco products. I haven't for years. I make sure I keep hydrated. That's a chore for me. I mean, to drink water, it's kind of boring. But the body likes it, and so I do it. I just do it. So. To be aware of time, to be respectful of time, and to not create any more unnecessary struggles or strife in my life or in the lives of people around me. Question from the group. Yes. Oh yeah, Myoshin. Sorry.
Anshin, when you went from practicing in the first monastery to the second monastery under a different teacher in a somewhat different school, how did you deal with any differences in the instructions you were given?
I didn't argue or debate with them. I just followed instructions. That's it, simple. No, it's just that simple, yeah. I didn't argue or debate. Over time, and I got to see how the two forms of practice sort of benefited. I benefited from both. But when I was in the second monastery, aside from smoking cigars, drinking beers, and eating burgers, I just followed instructions. I really couldn't see where the two worked together until I really was solid in one. It wasn't a competition. It wasn't an argument or a debate in my head. When I was in the first monastery, I did that. And in the second monastery, I did that. And out of the two experiences grew a practice that makes sense. So I didn't have to abandon one to do the other. Question from the group. Yes, Natalie and then Peter.
What was necessary to leave the life of the streets?
What was necessary to leave the life of the streets? I haven't really left it. I just don't live out there all the time anymore. But the street is as much a part of me as anything else I do. That's why when I visit homeless communities in this region, they are not the other. I'm not there to fix them or cure them or help them. I'm there to meet them and allow them to meet me and see how that relation can develop. And out of that, is there anything I can do based on my current circumstances, which are different from theirs? And how can I support them where they are? Not every person living on the street is unhappy there. Some people prefer that, and I understand that. Every person who's living outside doesn't necessarily want to live in a house. It's necessary to develop a relation so that I can be of whatever help I can be if help is needed. Peter.
Can you explain the statement that you said earlier that control is being forced into something that I'm not comfortable with?
Well, it has a. So so when I entered into the monastery, I was being asked to do certain things, and with some of those things I had a resistance to that. So if I surrendered to my resistance, which kept me trapped in cycles of suffering, one of the rationales that I could use was that these people are just trying to control me. But they weren't really trying to control me. They were just saying, if you want what we have, then, or if you really want to wake up, here's some tools that can support you. Now, in the military, I didn't have the choice. I couldn't say, hey, that's not working for me, I'm going home. And if not, I'm going to shame you, humiliate you, maybe even put you in prison. Or I might let you leave the military, but with the kind of form that follows me through my entire life, a form that would have negative impacts. Question from the group. Yes, KL.
Hello, AnShin and Kenshin.
Hey, KL.
AnShin, do you find that the practice of paying attention is generally adequate to lead to the most appropriate response in perhaps a difficult situation?
I think that in any given situation, especially difficult ones, if I'm paying attention, I may realize that I don't know how to respond and that I need some help. Also realize that, I don't really need to respond. There's nothing I really need to do, even though I'm driven to do something because I'm uncomfortable. Paying attention is recognizing that I am uncomfortable, then being willing to explore what's going on with me that I'm so uncomfortable. And then is there anything in particular that I need to do in this situation regarding the circumstances that gave rise to my uncomfortability? Sometimes the best action is no action. It's just to really just be steady, just be as still as possible for a time. Let the energy of that uncomfortable circumstances settle as best it can. And paying attention, I may understand that with this, I need some support or some help. So attention is always beneficial. Question from the group. Yes, Sonia.
Has anger also a good side?
Well, anger is a very natural emotion. However, most people don't understand the difference between anger and rage. Mostly what we see transmitted as anger is not anger, it's rage. Huge ball of unaddressed feelings that are just exploding on a circumstance. I watch children play. One child takes a toy away from another child. There's a little burst of anger, lasts about 30 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, and then they're hugging each other. It's not, it just passes because it's anger, not rage. Question from the group. Yes, Nicola.
Is there a difference between controlling someone when you are like a teacher or a parent and you're controlling the student or the child, or when you are controlling like adults, like they're on the same level?
Forcing a child to conform to what I think is best for them, forcing a child to conform to my idea of how they're supposed to be, is for the most part never helpful. The same with any person in a position of power. In a child's life, parents are gods. And so to be the best parent I can be, I need to wake up to my own suffering, my own conditioning. And just because a person, let's say an adult person, just because an adult person feels controlled doesn't mean they are controlled. So when people come here to practice, there are certain expectations, and they are for the most part clearly stated. Like here, we ask you to, let's say when you come for sitting, we ask you to be on camera 5 minutes before, not rushing on camera exactly. And if you're late, then you're invited by the person who is responsible for the meditation hall to wait in a breakout room online and sit there. And then when we do recitations, come online. Here in person, we ask you to be on your cushion 5 minutes before. If you come in the door to the Zendo 4 minutes before, or 4 minutes and 58 seconds before, we ask you to wait out and wait in the entry room. I will give someone one late entry, but I won't allow it to go on and on and on without being addressed. One retreat here some years back, we had a person who just decided they'd show up when they wanted to. So if they weren't here on time, I locked the door. But not after I had a conversation with them. Now, that person may have felt controlled. In the truth, the rules were, the guidelines were spelled out, consequences were spelled out. If you don't want to follow that, it's quite okay. But then, get a hotel room. Go hang out on the beach. You don't want to be here. Although I tell you, the resistance to this online bit, people get really angry. They want to just show up when they want to show up. Yeah, and the poor person who, they either react to the person who asked them to leave, or I get these scathing emails or telephone. People just want to do what they want to do. Practice is not about that.
Thank you for listening to this episode on Zalto Live. If you would like additional information, please look at the show notes or visit zalto.org. That's ZALTHO.org. Our work is made possible solely through donations, so please consider making a tax-deductible gift on our website. We wish you well and thank you.